Hello, I am back for the fourth painting of my 5-part painting series based on the process of self-actualization. Today we are here with my beautiful, luscious painting named Ascension. Yeah, so this is honestly one of my favorites of the series. The further we go in this series, the more it's my favorite. The last painting of the series is actually my ultimate favorite. This is my second favorite. The one before this was my third favorite, and so on and so forth. I was the model for this one. Yes, like I said, this is my fourth painting of my 5-part painting series based on the process of self-actualization, or recognizing our full potential and that it is tangible to reach our dream realities. Before I get into this lovely, luscious, juicy painting, I first just want to touch on the first 3. You can find the links to my first 3 videos on my first 3 paintings of this 5-part series in the bio or in the description below. Here's my first painting. This painting is called Disconnection. This focuses on stage 1 of the self-actualization process, feeling disconnected from the self and therefore feeling disconnected with the world. Here is my second painting of my 5-part painting series. This painting's name is Enlightenment, and it focuses on the stage where we are enlightened, that our ideal realities are actually tangible and that there's so much more to life than what maybe it may feel like sometimes. Here is my third painting of my 5-part painting series. This painting's name is called Surrender, and it just focuses on surrendering to the divine downloads, to what we want for our lives and not surrendering to what others want for our lives in that entire process. So I actually have videos explaining all of those paintings individually, and like I said, you can find those in my bio or in my description below. And today we are on the 4th painting of the series. I'm just so proud and happy of how this painting turned out. So yes, this is Ascension, self-elevation, ascending towards alignment. She has many names, but I decided to call her Ascension. I just love that I got to paint my butt. That's one of the reasons I love this painting so much. But I also really love the colors in this as well, and the perspective, and that I tried something different. And it has like all of my favorite colors in it too. So for this painting, you see that the figure is elevating towards this heart up here. And it just stands for elevating towards our North Star, an undeniable alignment towards God and our own godliness. It's all about ascension and alignment. Some of you may be asking, what is alignment? Alignment towards what? You mean like aligning a tire type beat? No. Let me go a bit more into what alignment is and how we can reach that and what that feels like. So alignment has many different definitions. I did a quick Google search just to try and find the words for how other people would define alignment and mix it with how I would define alignment, and here's the definition I came up with. Alignment is finding the harmonious integration of the mind, the body, and the spirit, ensuring that your actions match your deepest, most authentic desires. It is a state of harmony between our thoughts, our actions, and our soul's purpose. And a lot of times people describe this feeling as being in tune with God or a higher power or our true self. Let's put a pin in that for a moment. Being able to find a place of harmony with all of ourselves, our internal selves, our external selves, our mind, our emotions, our heart's desires, is stepping into alignment. And alignment is an undeniable feeling. It's not something you have to question. It's not something that you're unsure about. Like when you are stepping deeper into alignment, you know that you are. And sometimes like we can know something but then question it because it's new, or because we haven't heard much about it, or even just because we don't have like a set definition of it. I wouldn't say that the definition I gave you is like the set definition. Everyone's definition is different, but that is the best way I could explain it. It's like having this feeling that you can't deny, but not completely understanding how to put it into words is kind of how I feel about ascension. I wrote down some ways to know that you are in alignment and how you can recognize it so that when you are stepping deeper into that, it's unquestionable, it's unshakable, you know where you're at. My notes say, you know you're in alignment when you feel a deep sense of inner peace and joy. Have a feeling that your life is moving in the right direction without excessive friction. You feel an undeniable connection to God and have developed personal trust that you're exactly where you need to be in this moment. You feel a lightness to your soul and a sense of clarity about your reality. You are able to recognize fear versus love. Let's explore some of those things I just said. Being able to hold a deep sense of inner peace and joy with yourself requires a lot. It requires so many lessons and so many understandings. For me personally, one of the most freeing recognizations I had is that no action anybody can take towards you, or no action that you can take towards somebody else, is personal. There is not the ability for anything to ever be personal. And what I mean by that is that everyone acts because people hurt other people because of trauma, and trauma is just recycled hurt. Hurt people. And not to say that that's an excuse for when people hurt us, but no matter how personal someone can make something towards you, it is because they experienced a trauma and somebody hurt them. And I would say most of the time when people are doing things to hurt us, especially when it's intentional, it's typically to rebel against that person that hurt them. But that person, may not be around anymore or isn't an option, blah, blah, blah. So then they take it out on who they can. It's kind of, if you've ever seen the movie The Ant Bully, where like this kid, it's basically this movie where this kid bullies these ants because this bigger kid is bullying this kid. But then one day the kid is shrunk down to an ant size, and the ants are like, why are you bullying us? Why are you bullying us, bro? Like, we didn't do nothing to you. And the kid's like, oh, dang, what was being done to me, I was doing to you in rebellion against this bully. But he couldn't rebel against the bully because the bully was bigger than him and would beat him up. So he was like, I'll just bully these ants because these ants can't beat me up. Little did he know. But it's kind of like that, just like how kids bully other kids, because like even in that situation, that little kid who was bullying the ants was being bullied by this kid, and that kid was being bullied by his parent, and that parent was bullied by their parent, and the train just goes on. So that was like, that's just an example of something that was really freeing to me, that gave me a much deeper sense of peace and joy, was recognizing that no one's actions towards us are personal, even if they try their hardest to make it personal. It's just them recycling the trauma and submitting to the pattern. When you are in alignment, it feels like there is a lightness to your soul. You come to recognize the things that once bothered you, or the things that once really caused you pain, don't really cause you that much pain anymore. And there's just this undeniable lightness to your being that you feel. And you're just able to not be in such a hurt place. And that's just so much easier said than done. Like to feel that sense of inner peace and joy it honestly takes a lot of work, but a lot of intentional work. You have to want to heal. And I think that was also a really great recognition for me as well. Like you're not gonna heal if you don't want to. We have such dominion over where we want to be in the world, even if it doesn't feel like that. Or we have dominion over what our reality is. No matter what it looks like, we choose how we decide to look at it. And sometimes it doesn't feel like we have much of a choice, but like you see it all the time. Kind of like how like sometimes you might see someone who might, be a victim of poverty, or someone who might not have the most money, yet they're choosing to see life joyfully, seeing what they do have and having a great time with that. You see billionaires, millionaires all the time who have all this money and all this access to things, and they're extremely sad, lonely, and depressed. And it's really just about the realities we create for ourselves, and just recognizing that we, like, our views on things will shape what our lives are going to be. One thing I also wanted to touch on is recognizing fear. A lot of times it can be hard to recognize fear when we don't recognize love, because they're opposing forces. And because they're opposing forces, being able to recognize one means that you can recognize the other. And sometimes we might not have the most love we might not have a lot of love in our lives, or we might not be able to recognize a lot of love in our lives. But once we are able to recognize what love is and how we define that, it's a lot easier to recognize what fear is. And fear can be such a trickster, because it can, like, fear and anxiety, they're part of the same family, and it can be hard to recognize the voice of reality versus the voice of God, or the voice of your intuition. That can be really hard to, like, tell apart sometimes. And I definitely think that was a big toughie for me when doing my best to step deeper into alignment and elevation, because sometimes anxiety can be really convincing, and it can tell us things that is like, well, dang, that's true, I can't dispute that. But sometimes the voice of love tells us things that may be hard to believe. Like, we might look in the mirror and love is like, wow, you're beautiful. And anxiety might be like, look at all these little imperfections, and how, like, when you look at the magazines, you don't look like that person. Yet it really is a choice about which voice you're going to listen to, or which voice you're going to dare to listen to. Sometimes it's easier to listen to one versus the other, and sometimes one makes more sense than the other. And with that, I would say that when stepping deeper into alignment, it just becomes easier to recognize which voice belongs to what. And that also takes the courage to listen to new opinions and to new things about life, about yourself, that you may not have heard before, you may not have thought about before. You know, maybe we're talking about someone who's never seen themselves as beautiful, and who has never been told that they were beautiful truly by someone. And yet they start to dare to see themselves as beautiful. And once they step on that path, it starts to become easier when you hear people projecting their own opinions of themselves, and recognizing, like, oh, you're telling me I'm not beautiful because you don't think you're beautiful, because someone told you weren't beautiful, because someone told them that they weren't beautiful. Let's see how that hurt was recycled, huh? And let's stop the train, because what? So yeah, that's the best example I could give about that one. But stepping deeper into alignment, you can see things clearer. There's a sense of clarity that comes with alignment, and being able to recognize things that try to take you outside of that alignment. Because when we are stepping deeper into that, like, into self-elevation, into that ascension, there are definitely gonna come challenges that challenge us and make us have to choose, you know, that little angel on our shoulder, or that little devil on our shoulder. And come to, like, it's almost like training yourself. You have to train yourself to build those muscles, to hear one side and to also hear the other side, but to recognize which side to listen to and which side is most beneficial for your life and for where you're trying to go. Another thing I have in my notes: when we ascend and elevate in self, we often are required to let go of things that no longer serve us, in order to welcome new things that will serve us much better and more full. Often we come to recognize that these things that used to serve us only fill our glass halfway now. This one's a biggie. Elevating in self, elevating in alignment, elevating where we're trying to go, requires us to let go of things that that are dragging us down. Now, what I will say is that sometimes some things start really great for us for where we are, and then we level up past that, but that thing is still on that level. And because that thing is still on that level, it can kind of like, I kind of think of it as like a weight attached to a chain. Like if you don't let go of that chain, it's going to make it harder and harder and harder to lift and to elevate from that level. And sometimes it's things that we really enjoy. Sometimes it's things we've formed our personality around, we've formed like things around, and it's just not for us anymore. Like I know people who, used to really enjoy drinking, and drinking used to be super fun every weekend, every day, whenever. Day drink for breakfast, day drink for, or evening drink for dinner, like type beat. But and at that point in time, at that point in time, maybe it was helping them to meet people that they would have never met and to enter new spaces that they would have never had access to. But where they are aligning to, it's not something that is helping them in that era, or it's not something that is bringing them that lightness to their soul anymore. And sometimes, like, that person could be known for, OMG, Jim, like, little Jim can drink, I don't know, 5 shots in like 2 seconds. Oh my gosh, like little Jim is the shot monster. That's a crazy example. But like now little Jim doesn't really even like drinking anymore. But it's like, dang, like this is what he's known for. This is what's happening in his social circles. How can will people still like him if he stops being little Jim little Jim the shot monster? Can he really become, I don't know, maybe he wants to be a puzzle master. Maybe he wants to be own a museum. Like, dreams change, and being able to have the courage to elevate past maybe where people know us for, or elevate past the understanding that people once had of us, that takes courage, and that takes effort. But it's worth it, because then you look back years later and you're like, wow, like if I wouldn't have had the courage to like move past being little Jim the shot monster, then he maybe he would have never changed lives with his museum. He would have never been able to create some of the world's most complex, amazing puzzles. You never know. That was the only example that came to mind, which is hilarious. It really takes having the courage to let things go, no matter how ingrained they become in our lives. If it's not helping us elevate, then that's the next step, is to learn how to let go of that thing, or those things, or that person, or that substance, or that action that gives you instant gratification but doesn't create long-term joy. Another thing I said was, welcoming change / new things may feel uncomfortable or scary at first. But if we want to reach new heights and new levels in life, it will require us to surround ourselves with environments that allow us to enter growth and more love and ease. You can tell when you're outgrowing something, or something is hindering your elevation, when one, it doesn't bring you a sense of like internal ease. And this is not to say that like the things that are meant for us should always feel easy. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes the things that are meant for us to do, or the things that we really need to be doing for our better good, are not easy. But there's a sense of ease in our soul that comes when we do the things that we know deep in our soul that we need to do. Even if the action is difficult or challenging, we, like, when we're doing it, or after we've done it, we're like, oh wow, I'm actually so glad I did that. We also know when we are outgrowing something, when it doesn't, when it only brings instant gratification to us. And sometimes that can get a little tricky, because there are some things that bring instant gratification and long-term gratification. But a lot of the times it's usually one or the other. If something brings instant gratification, I think it's a great way to ask if this is part of alignment is, oh, can I see this bringing me long-term joy, or can I see this adding to my long-term joy, or or will this only be something that gives me instant gratification? I think if something gives you instant gratification but you can't find a way that it'll give you long-term joy, then a lot of times that probably isn't stepping into alignment. There's always a unicorn situation that works for somebody and doesn't work for other people, but I think that's a great way to start looking at things, at least a little bit. My next note: sometimes we have to allow ourselves to get tired of choosing what is easy so that we can finally learn how important it is to choose what is best for the bigger picture. This one is hooey, because I feel like I am still doing my best to learn this. Like, it's something I recognize in my heart and my soul, but it's something I'm still learning how to fully listen to personally. Because the simple, easy road is simple and easy. It's like, boom, right there. But sometimes we have to take the long road, which, is more work and not easy, and there isn't any instant gratification. But in the long run, we're going to look back and be so much more grateful that we chose that path. And that examples of this can span in so many ways. Something like, for me, that I've been learning recently is like stepping out of the instant gratification of scrolling and being like, oh, I don't know what to do right now. Let me just scroll, see what I find. Oh, hee hee ha ha, this feels good. This is easy, simple, gratifying me instantly. Getting rid of any type of like, I don't know what to do-ness. Or I could come set all this up and make a video and add to my creative portfolio and get a beautiful divine message out. And go and edit this and then, create the thumbnails and the captions and make sure this looks all nice and pretty before I put it up there. Like, that's an example of like something I had to recognize, for example. But yeah, it honestly reminds me of the whole Adam and Eve story in Genesis in the Bible, about how it can be really easy to just listen. So if anyone doesn't know about the Adam and Eve story in the Bible, basically the origin story of the earth is God creates all of nature and then creates man and all the animals and stuff, and then this snake comes along when God creates Adam and Eve, the first man, first human, and the snake comes up to Eve and is like, oh, well, God tells them, oh, you can't eat from this tree. You can eat from all the other trees everywhere. You just can't eat from this one tree. All right, y'all not ready to eat from that tree yet. Y'all still got some things to learn. Y'all still gotta, understand some things. I want to bring you up level by level. Y'all still little kids. Y'all need to know about all that right now. Don't eat from this tree yet, okay? It's just not your time yet. And then the snake comes around, and the snake is like, this fruit real good. Don't you want to just eat it a little bit? And Eve is like, okay. The snake basically twists God's words around and has Eve eat the fruit from this tree. And then Eve goes up to Adam and it's like, hey, don't you eat this fruit? For some reason Adam eats the fruit. Then bam, they get all this knowledge that they weren't inherently ready for, because they were still too young and they still had things to learn before they're ready for this particular type of knowledge. And this example reminds me of this because the snake in this biblical story is a great example of that easy, simple, instant gratifying choice. Like eating that little fruit was like the snake's like, oh, you're gonna feel this instant gratification, you can just pick it, it's real easy, versus having to, keep looking at this juicy fruit and not tasting and doing all that hard work to like make sure you don't eat it. Like, why don't you just eat it right now? Get that instant knowledge. And God was upset about this because God was like, oh dang, like I wanted you to choose your long-term joy. Like, because you chose this, now like this affects your long-term joy. Like, yeah, you got that instant knowledge, you got what you wanted from this fruit, but now I can't work with you to create this long-term joy in the way that I had dreamed for you to experience. And it's just, I think that's a great example of what I'm trying to get at, because it can, like, that little snake talking to Eve is kind of like the whole angel and demon on the shoulder type beat, where it's like, dang, like, maybe I shouldn't, like, I should probably listen to this intuition and that's telling me not to do this, and like, I could not do it, but like, it looks real fun, and I kind of really want to do it, and I know it's gonna feel good to do, so I'm gonna do it. Like, that mindset. And just how sometimes things can seem so cute and nice and simple when we can tell in our intuition that that's not meant for us, at least not right now, at least not in that way, at least not it's just not that time. And honestly, this is like building a muscle. It's definitely a muscle that we have to learn how to work out and build strength for, of learning how to recognize things that aren't allies and aren't supportive of where we're trying to go in the long run, but like just feel good right now and are low-key just gonna distract us from getting to that long-term goal. One of my last notes: we always have the choice to step deeper into or farther away from alignment at any point of the process. Elevating deeper into alignment feels like going up a staircase. Each step up is choosing our long-term joy, and each step down is the opposite. You can always choose which way you want to go, how long you want to linger, or if you want to continue one way or the other. So this one is real important, because we always have the choice. We always have the choice if we want to get better in life, if we want to get healthier. We always have the choice if we want to not get healthier, at least like spiritually. I'm not talking about like physically. Sometimes physical things happen, but I'm talking like spiritually, like in our soul and like deep inside. We always have the choice to self-elevate or to not self-elevate. And even though we've been elevating ourselves for a long time, it really just takes one time to start going back down that staircase. And sometimes we can do things where we're knocked down multiple stairs on that staircase because we chose something. So I just like to say, like, choose your ascension wisely, because sometimes, sorry, I think someone's shoveling outside my house. But yeah, so sometimes it is not all that easy to come to recognize that no matter if we fall far down that staircase, we can always still step back up. That staircase is always there, and we can always keep going up that staircase. And sometimes you'll be all the way up on the staircase, and then you'll be like, oh, I'm high enough, I'm good. And sometimes you might linger there, not knowing that there are always steps up. Like, you can always keep going. Yeah, you can always keep going. And you know how people say it's about the process, it's about the journey, it's not about where you're gonna get to, it's about the journey. It really is about the journey, and being able to recognize that, like, the process of stepping up that staircase is always more worth it than stepping down that staircase, for real, because you can feel it. You can feel when you're stepping, and I'm using this analogy of the staircase because it's the easiest way to explain it, but when you like are not elevating in self, and like you feel like life is getting like sadder, muckier, darker, and just unenjoyable whatsoever, that's a great sign that you're stepping downward towards the staircase. And maybe it might be time for a pause and to think about what is required to start stepping upward. And it just feels like the further down we step on that staircase, the less opportunity that just comes to us, the less there, you don't feel that sense of lightness, you don't feel that sense of clarity, that sense of love, that sense of, oh, like, like of trust with God, with the universe. Like things don't feel as easy flowing. There feels like there's a lot of friction. It feels like things are constantly just not going the way they need to go. Well, I will say that like sometimes when we are elevating, things can get trickier and trickier, but it's really just learning how to really emphasize being in that trust with God, with your intuition, and how like I think when the further up we go on that staircase, the more we can fully understand that. Oh, sorry, there's like someone outside my house. Anyway, the further up we step on that staircase, the more and the further the more elevated we become, and the more self-elevated we become, we really come to recognize that no matter what challenge comes around, there is always a way out. There's always an escape, and there is always a way to there's always a way to see love in every situation. No matter how hard it may be, no matter how hard it may feel. And it's a radical move. It's a radical action to take, but it is always an option. And I definitely wanted to put that out there. Hopefully everything made sense with the whole staircase analogy. I tried my bestest to make it all make sense, but it's such a simple yet complex analogy, but it's the best way. It's the best way I could explain what I was trying to explain. Something else I wanted to mention is that I created this figure to be nude, specifically because when we are elevating in life, it's a very raw, vulnerable place to be. It's an emotional and just it's a time where you're seeing yourself very clearly, and you are learning how to look at yourself clearly in a way that isn't scary, in a way that does encourage courage. Thank you so much for listening to my explanation of this painting. If you like to see any explanations to the previous 4 paintings, feel free to look below in the description, in the bio, wherever I'm gonna put it. And yes, I am beyond excited to express to you guys what all it took to create the final painting of this series. The final painting of the series is the biggest painting I've ever created, and it was all completely free-handed. Low-key for this painting, all of the colors were very free-handed. I had drawn the figure, but I didn't draw anything else when I was painting it, so even like, you can see, even all of these clouds and this little like line right here, these were all I just free-handed it as I was painting it, and I adore how it came out. It's really cute, and I'm just really glad with the color scheme that I chose. I'm so glad this made it into being part of the series for real, for real. But yes, thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next and final video of this 5-part painting series.